Now, I'm speaking English because our next guest on stage is having a perspective maybe a little bit more international because he comes from doing TED Talks and we're happy to have her here. Looking at future skills and competences. That is so key, it's at the fundament of everything. And ladies and gentlemen, before we do that, I'd like to invite you just go to the 5 theses that Olivier Job has presented to you. Just look at them, choose one, vote which one is the best, which one is doable, which one is not only doable, maybe grasp for the moon, for the stars, which one has the most effect, because this is the one we're going to pick, because we want to change matters. We don't want to stay the way, or keep it the way it is. We want to move something. This is why the entire matter is called movetia, capisci? Allora, now, looking at the future, éclairage, acquérir aujourd'hui, les compétences de demain, le rôle des échanges et de la mobilité. Je me réjouis d'accueillir sur scène Cristina Riesen, fondatrice, le mot est difficile pour moi en français, fondatrice Edu Creators Foundation and co-CEO of Taskbase. Happy to have you here, ladies and gentlemen, Cristina Riesen.
Hi Fabian, and hello everybody. I'm super excited to be here because it's fair enough to say that we are entering a new era of education. And this is not necessarily due to the pandemic. The pandemic acts as an accelerator. It's a growing of trends that have been emerging now for quite some years. Now, I would argue that we shouldn't be afraid of change, because change is life. And the more we resist it, the more it would be hard for us to go on. The more we embrace it, the more we will present it with just amazing opportunities. Now, let's have a closer look at what is happening. You know, historically, there's been a constant race between technology and education. And if we are taking a closer look, we see that technology somehow is sometimes faster. It happened during the Industrial Revolution. And for some time, when technology is faster, a social big pain is created. But this is not necessarily bad, because this is what pushes us, humans, to come up with innovations. And believe it or not, you know, today's problem, as one rightly said, are yesterday's innovation. So once the innovations are in place, for some time, we can relax in a period of prosperity. And we feel that everything is just as it should be. And we feel that we have the education that we deserve. But then technology continues to develop, and here we go again. So we entered the digital revolution, and it's inevitable that the social pain is again created. So I would argue that today we are standing at a crossroads, and we should be excited about the future. Now, when we talk about the future, it is important first to look at our challenges today. One can ask what is needed for us to equip our young people with the skills they need to thrive. What do we need as a society? And when we look at the education system and at learning in general, we could argue that there are 3 important things: scalability, flexibility, and skills. Our current education system is not scalable enough, fair enough. It was not designed to be so. But we know that if we look, for example, at higher education, we expect the number of students to double by 2030. And we know that it is not by doubling the number of universities buildings or doing what we have been doing until today that we are going to fix this problem. We need flexibility, because by 2030, more than 50% of students will be non-traditional students, will be young people who simply cannot and do not want to stay for 4 years in continuous education. Skills, when we look at what is happening in the workspace today, we can expect to have a labor deficit of $8.5 trillion by 2030, because we simply are lacking in equipping people with the skills they need to thrive in our society. So then, how might we design the future of education? How can we solve all these challenges? When speaking of the future, I would like to talk about it in its plural forms. It's about futures. And Jim Dator argues that we as humans tend to look at things through 4 archetypal futures. The one that is preferred by our society, the Western world, and our economy is growth. Then there's a disciplined future. It's enough to look at China. Nobody wants to see the third scenario, which is collapse, something catastrophic that simply ends our existence. But there's another scenario, the 4th one. And this is where things get really interesting. It's about transformation. It's about having the courage to challenge the status quo, step into the unknown, and come up with new things. So I truly believe that the pandemic is a game changer, because it is only an invitation for us to step into a transformational future. It is said that the future is already here. It is just not yet equally distributed. And this is so true, because if we would be to have a closer look around the world at what is happening, we would observe that there's change agents, young people who emerge and they start doing things differently. They start learning and working and connecting in different ways. And these are the lead learners. These are the people we should closely watch if we are to understand in which direction we should go in the future. Now, the Institute for the Future in California did a really interesting study on global youth skills. And they visited 6 cities around the world and talked to 60 such lead learners. They came up with 9 lead learners archetypes. And as you have a look at them, some of them may sound familiar. Some of them are famously embodied by public personalities. It's enough to look at climate changer and to think of Greta, for example. One of the archetypes that triggered my attention was, I will show you in a minute, the DJ. But before we go there, what do they have in common, all these lead learners? What are they doing? Which are the skills that they develop? First of all, they, on one hand, continue to embrace a traditional education while, at the same time, coming up with novel work and learn strategies. And it's really interesting to see that it's about real-life projects, connection with an international community, and mastering all emerging technology that is out there. They are absolutely amazing when it comes to mastering social media branding, for example. And they have something really special that my generation perhaps didn't have enough, which is they do not fear failure. They go and try, explore, share, and go on, and they move fast. And they are not afraid of things that they did not learn in school. Most of them will watch sometimes YouTube videos just to train themselves or get in touch with communities of hackers and learn really fast and start building prototypes, models, and just making things happen. I was mentioning before the DJ Learn profile. And for me, this was really interesting because when I thought of a DJ, of course, I was thinking mixing music, fair enough. But this is a completely new level of DJing because it has to do with bringing together communities, international communities. and broadcasting impactful stories through sound, body, humanity experiences. Now, this archetype of learner has a really incredible skill set. Some of it's learned in schools, but we clearly see that all these people, they have basically their learning gathered around 4 dimensions. It's traditional knowledge, it's still important, they still learn mathematics, they still learn literature and so on. There's new topics coming in, such as entrepreneurship, for example, but then there's skills like creativity or collaboration. There's character development, like ethics or leadership, and even more important, there's the growth mindset. And this is really the game changer for these lead learners, because already today, they see themselves as lifelong learners. And they are able to magically mix what they learn in school with what they learn through their peers who are distributed, who are in many different cities around the world. So they become masters of public performance, of self-promotion. They already know how to use virtual reality, augmented reality, or artificial intelligence. They are really great in multimedia storytelling, and they don't do it just for fun, because they pick up topics that are truly important for our society today. They challenge the way we look at sustainability or climate change. It's a lot about community co-creation. So they are the ones that we should definitely watch, because what they are showing us is that there's no way back. We are clearly moving away from a linear education and career model. There's no longer, I'm going to school, I'm going to get my diploma, and I'm going to go and get a job. The new normal is becoming work and learn paths, and combining and learning ongoing skills and then connecting with people with whom you can make projects happen. These lead learners are forging a new global citizenship because they know and understand the power of global communities. And this is where mobility and exchange is key. And this is where we in Switzerland have to make sure that we are part of these global emerging communities. Mobility and exchange are, for me, the most important factor in fueling this transformational future. More than ever, it is important that we support our young people here in Switzerland to open up, to meet their peers around the world, to get involved in projects that are changing the way we live and we will live in the future. And I know that sometimes it's tough to make the very first step, but I would say we are all natural-born learners. And as a matter of fact, big change starts always with very small steps. So on my side, I would like to encourage you to do a very important first step already now. I would like you to take the time and vote for the 5 theses that Olivia presented before the break, because for me, they are truly valuable solutions that can help us bridge the challenges we are facing today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cristina Riesen. Now, looking at the future competences, you've mentioned amongst, just stay here for a little while, please, because not long, but just getting back at your talk and looking at the future, what kind of skills are needed. You've picked for yourself the DJ, you've framed a skill set that is necessary to go with that path, but what do you think are the most important skills to strive into the future?
Yes, thank you very much, Fabian, for the question. It's definitely a lot about co-creation, being able to work together with other people, creatively, collaboratively. I think this is really key. And this is not something that one just happens to learn today. So this is something that we need to encourage more. And then it's about just being trained to explore, to try, to learn from failure. There is one ETH professor, Manu Kapoor, and he has really interesting research on what is called productive failure and encouraging our young people to learn by doing, to get engaged, and to actually really see and look, what is the world all about? How can I bring my talent into the world? And the more that is happening, I would say, early on in life, the more we have then the possibility to have people who can, on one hand, fulfill their true potential, and the better our world will be as well.
Now you said it's important to try to go maybe the iterative approach as we see it on a maybe daily or weekly basis with SpaceX launches. They test rockets by flying the rockets and see them fail and improve them. And this approach goes as long as they don't have astronauts on board. Now, Switzerland has that mentality of maybe being a bit tentative, risk avoiding. Even in conversation, one does not want to step upon someone else's foot. One is very reluctant. Now, how should we breach that mentality? How can we foster being more open, more entrepreneurial? Because even in conversations, if you suggest someone do that, no, I cannot do this. Yes, other one has already tried, they didn't succeed. And so that we can step outside our own mentality.
Yes, I mean, fair enough, you know, and it's something that it served Switzerland for a long time, and it was great. But I'm happy to report, because I am involved with startups, and I'm in the ground, in the field every day. And I can assure you that this is changing as we speak, because there's a new generation that has definitely understood that there's a need for innovation. They have what it takes, they have the drive. And here in Switzerland, we have just an amazing ecosystem when we think about the amazing schools we have, you know, also the resources we have. I think that now already, when we look at the startup scene, it has evolved so much in the past years. And I can assure you that change is coming. And entrepreneurship is going to become, for sure, I think also in Switzerland, for the broad population in a few years' time.
I'm absolutely with you. I work with startups as well, having co-founded Swiss healthcare startups, and absolutely believe in that potential, the creativity. Now, startups work lots with AI that you've mentioned, and what are the digital skills that are needed in the future? Where should we invest our time?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, before we talk about how to build technology, I think it is really important to understand and go back to the basics, you know, and this is something that also with the foundation we do a lot, where we try to increase awareness around the basics. You know, what is an algorithm, for example? What does it do? What could it do? How could we use it? So before you go and even touch on a computer or even start to code, there are much more important steps that we need to take. So for me, this is very important, because when we talk about digital skills, many people have the impression that it is about mainly coding or just mastering whatever tool. And for me, this is for sure important, but it is not the most important thing. So we first need to have, I would say, digital literacy to understand the basics of technology and what technology could do for us. And afterwards, of course, everything is learnable. So we can definitely learn even the more sophisticated, you know, like if we are talking about quantum computing or anything else, in the end, there's ways to learn that. So it's really important that we don't rush into pushing people to just use technology or think about, oh, I need to learn to code first, because it's not about that. It's about understanding the bigger picture, which are the challenges that we are facing as society, and how can we use technology to support us. Technology should always be an enabler, and it should be something that is built with a very strong ethical stamina, because otherwise we are going to be in trouble.
Thank you very much. Cristina Riesen.
Thank you very much, Fabian. Thank you, everybody.